Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we retaking a deep dive into one of the most transformative periods in human history, the Industrial Revolution. It's a story of invention, ambition, and profound societal change that reshaped our world in ways we still feel today. So, grab a cup of tea, and let's travel back in time. Our story begins in Great Britain in the late 18th century. Before this period, most people lived in rural areas, working the land. Life was dictated by the seasons, and most goods were made by hand, right in people's homes. This was the era of the cottage industry. Imagine a family spinning wool into thread and weaving it into cloth on a small loom in their living room. It was slow, painstaking work, and production was limited. But then, something started to shift. A series of key inventions began to appear, especially in the textile industry. One of the first game changers was the flying shuttle, invented by John Kay in 1733. This simple device allowed a single weaver to weave much wider fabrics and mechanize the process, speeding it up significantly. This created a bottleneck. Weavers could now work faster than spinners could produce thread. The demand for yarn skyrocketed. This challenge spurred the invention of the spinning jenny by James Hargreaves in the 1760s. The spinning jenny could spin multiple spools of thread at once, dramatically increasing output. It was still human-powered, but it was a massive leap forward. Soon after, Richard Arkwright developed the water frame, which used water power from rivers to drive spinning machines. Unlike the spinning jenny, the water frame was too large and expensive for a home. It required a purpose-built factory, usually located next to a fast-flowing river. This was a crucial step. Production was moving out of the home and into centralized factories. The final piece of the textile puzzle was Samuel Crompton's spinning mule in 1779. It combined the best features of the spinning jenny and the water frame to produce strong, fine yarn. This was followed by Edmund Cartwright's power loom in the 1780s, which automated the weaving process. Now, factories could produce cloth at an astonishing rate, far beyond what was ever possible by hand. But what powered this revolution? Initially, it was water. But the real powerhouse, the engine of the Industrial Revolution, was steam. In 1776, James Watt, a Scottish inventor, didn't invent the steam engine, but he dramatically improved upon the existing Newcomen engine. Watt's engine was far more efficient, using less fuel to produce more power. This was the breakthrough. Watt's steam engine was revolutionary because it wasn't tied to a river. You could build a factory anywhere, as long as you could get coal to it. This freed industry from the constraints of geography. The steam engine was soon applied to everything. It powered the bellows for iron furnaces, drove the machinery in textile mills, and, most famously, it powered the locomotive. The development of the steam locomotive and the railway network was another defining feature of this era. George Stephenson's rocket, which won the Rainhill trials in 1829, proved that steam-powered transport was viable and efficient. Railways crisscrossed the country, transporting raw materials like coal and iron to factories and finished goods to markets at unprecedented speeds. It was like the internet of the 19th century, connecting the country in a way that had never been seen before. It shrunk distances and created a truly national market. This industrial boom required vast amounts of raw materials, particularly coal and iron. New techniques in iron production, like the use of coke instead of charcoal, allowed for the mass production of high-quality iron. This iron was used to build the machines, the factories, the bridges, and the railways that were the backbone of the new industrial society. Abraham Darby and Henry Cort were pioneers in this field, and their innovations made Britain the world's leading iron producer. Now, all this change wasn't just about machines and factories. It had a profound and often brutal impact on people's lives. The rise of the factory system led to one of the largest migrations in history, the move from the countryside to the city. People flocked to new industrial towns like Manchester, Liverpool, and Birmingham in search of work. These cities grew at an explosive rate, often without any planning. Housing was cramped and unsanitary. Entire families would live in a single room with no running water or sanitation. Diseases like cholera and typhoid were rampant. Life was hard, and the work was even harder. Inside the factories, conditions were often appalling. A typical workday could be 12 to 16 hours long, 6 days a week. The work was repetitive, monotonous, and incredibly dangerous. The machinery had few, if any, safety features, and accidents were common. There was no job security, no sick pay, and no compensation for injuries. Perhaps the most heartbreaking aspect was the widespread use of child labor. Children, some as young as 5 or 6, were employed in factories and mines. Their small size made them ideal for tasks like crawling under machines to fix broken threads or working in narrow coal seams. They worked the same long hours as adults for a fraction of the pay, their childhood sacrificed to the relentless demands of industry. These harsh conditions eventually led to resistance. Workers began to organize into unions to demand better pay, shorter hours, and safer conditions. Movements like the Luddites protested against the machines that were taking their jobs, sometimes smashing factory equipment. Over time, and after long struggles, these movements led to important social reforms. The Factory Acts, passed throughout the 19th century, gradually began to regulate working hours and conditions, especially for women and children. The Industrial Revolution wasn't just a British phenomenon. By the mid-19th century, it had spread to other parts of Europe like Belgium, France, and Germany, and across the Atlantic to the United States. Each country adapted the new technologies to its own resources and circumstances, but the fundamental pattern of industrialization was the same. The long-term consequences are all around us. The Industrial Revolution created immense wealth and propelled nations like Britain to global dominance. It led to the rise of a new middle class of merchants, engineers, and factory owners. It fostered a culture of innovation and technological progress that continues to this day. However, it also created vast social inequalities, environmental pollution that we are still grappling with, and a new way of life centered on the factory clock rather than the natural rhythms of the sun and seasons. It laid the groundwork for our modern consumer society, our globalized economy, and our urban-centric world. In essence, the Industrial Revolution was a double-edged sword. It brought progress and prosperity, but at a tremendous human cost. It was a period of brilliant invention and brutal exploitation, of opportunity and despair. Understanding this complex and contradictory legacy is key to understanding the world we live in today. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey through the Industrial Revolution. I hope you found it insightful. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. And don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you won't miss our next exploration into history. Let me know in the comments what topic you'd like to see next. Until then, stay curious.